The goal of today and the goal of looking at copywriting in general is to kind of be able to raise that awareness about yourself and what you can offer in a way that's kind of compelling, I guess, to other people. So let's tell you a little bit about me. I started my career as a technical writer. I used to write technical manuals for Wi-Fi spectrum analysis products, really technical, kind of dry, kind of boring stuff. And then while I was studying computer science at school, my background is in communication theory with a minor in computer science, which is kind of a unique, hold on a second, my screen just moved on me, kind of a unique background there. Also worked in marketing. I've been a scrum master and a product owner, again, at that Wi-Fi company and then on some other products. Most recently, for about the last almost a decade, I worked on content engineering efforts for developer education products that moved into the seven figures. So that goes from instructional design of like what the course is actually going to contain, the actual writing of lessons based on videos of the product, and then on from there, I already mentioned the technical manuals, landing pages, and marketing materials. And lately, for the past several years, like from before ChatGPT was even released, around the time of GPT-2, I had started working on automation around that kind of marriage of writing and AI. And there you go. I built automations around that. And then I also most recently co-authored Total TypeScript, which is a book that will be published by No Starch coming up soon. And I used everything I'm going to show you today, I used while writing that draft. And I'm currently consulting as well. Today, here's the plan. We're going to talk about the writing environment setup. I'm assuming that everybody in the audience has used Cursor or at least are aware of it. And I guess vibe coding is becoming increasingly popular, but we're going to go in a little bit of a different way. And we'll do this through a 4-phase demo of a writing project. And then if we have time at the end, there'll be some Q&A and then maybe going deeper into the demo. So the demo that we're going to do is, I guess, before I skip ahead, so our demo will be writing a pitch for consulting services. So this is going to be similar to what Jason teaches in his workshop, but go a little bit more in depth. So let's start talking about setting up Cursor as a writing environment. So first of all, Cursor is a fork of Visual Studio Code. I'll kind of go a little bit fast through this because I'm assuming that we all have experience with this, but so Cursor can do everything that Visual Studio Code can do, but then it has AI features built in as well. One of these features is the ability to have contextual awareness of your entire project, and it has AI-powered auto-completion, chat, and agentic code generation features. I would push up my glasses if I still wore them when I say that. It also has web search capabilities built in, and it supports specific configuration rules. And these are all things that we're going to look at in the lens of content creation. One of the features in VS Code and Cursor that I like to point out that a lot of people miss is there is an outline view in the lower corner. And it will show you in your Markdown where different heading levels are. It's great not only for getting started, like instead of starting with a blank page, you can set up an outline for yourself with different heading levels. And this is a good way to search through that. Or if you're using an existing document, it makes it easy to kind of get a feel for where you are. All of these are the kind of accordion expando things, just for the record. Also down there is a timeline view. This is also super useful. Think of this kind of like in Google Docs or something where you have that history of what the edits were. So this will let you kind of do a diff between what's changed. And this is something that's better on the small scale in case you aren't using Git. I don't know why you aren't. If you're not, please learn Git. But this will help you out there. Then the search feature, I'm on a Mac. I think that on Windows, everything that says command is a control. Don't quote me on that. But this ties in with that headline view of Shift Command O, and then you can start typing a different heading, like words from it. So this is something that will also help you navigate docs. So this is something that it works in code too. A lot of people seem to miss that it's there. And now for these are some extensions that I use for writing specifics. So Markdown All-in-One it gives you shortcuts for things like highlighting text and hitting Command B to turn it into bold, but it's Markdown. So it's things like that. It also enhances the Markdown previews. Mermaid chart support. I used in one of Jason's emails, built a mermaid chart to explain kind of the consulting ecosystem, which is pretty cool. Markdown lint is very similar to ESLint or other tools like that. It will find problems in a document based on a set of rules. Commonly, when using an AI generated I generated document, there might be things like too many spaces that you don't like, or maybe it uses bold for a heading, bold text as a heading instead of an actual heading level, stuff like that. Change case is handy for swapping between camel case, kebab case, stuff like that. Code spell checker is a code spell checker. And local history is something that is kind of going off that timeline view. It is somewhere between that and Git, where entire versions of your file are saved in a .history folder in the root of your project. And that's super handy for not having to remember to git commit, and then it will catch stuff that the timeline view misses. And then Jumpy 2, I don't use all the time, but sometimes it's pretty clutch. It's just like, what's it called? The Vim plugin whose name I forget. But anyways, it lets you jump to something, to a word. I'll show it in a few. It'll make way more sense. And then again, a quick overview of the key cursor features that I use when writing. The quick inline AI edits, that is done with Command K. The AI sidebar, which is where ask and agent mode are. This is also where most of the changes in cursor take place, it seems. There's a lot of UI changes they do. Context awareness of your project. I'll just skip those next couple clicks. And then cursor rules we'll talk about. What we won't talk about today is MCP servers and the custom edit mode feature that recently came out. These are awesome. You should definitely check them out, but we won't do it today. So for the demo, let's take a look at how we would write a consulting pitch email. And we're going to do this kind of iteratively and build out kind of the strategy behind it as we go. And I'd like to point out now also that while this process that we're doing for this demo uses cursor, the process could be applicable to any kind of AI front end or, writing your own scripts. But hey, we're talking about cursor today, right? Okay, so phase 0, we're going to start with a naive prompting approach. And we'll do this using Cursor's ask mode, which is essentially a regular chat. It doesn't have the agent features where it won't create or change your files or do anything like that. It will just ask a question and it answers it in the thing. And we will do this with a basic write an email to get new clients as a copywriter prompt. So I am going to switch my screen share to Cursor and close that terminal out. And so I did do one ahead of time just to see, but the demo gods might be on my side, but I pre-made the demo just in case. We'll see what happens here. And close this sidebar. Oh, see, I didn't tell it to search the web, so this is interesting. This is why I did this ahead of time. Ask mode. I'm kind of surprised that it's doing that like that. Oh, I see. Because I didn't set the model. Let's use a 3.7 Sonnet. See, this is why I pre-generate this stuff. It still wants to search. Let's just close that and pretend. I do have MCP servers enabled. Yep. So that's why I did this without that. Thanks, Alex, for the comment there. This is why I did this. The prompt, write an email to get new clients as a copywriter. I think when we were all getting used to GPT stuff, we probably did a similar prompt to this. So what we have here, and because Cursor has a UI bug where if you close the sidebar and then reopen, it will cut off the sides. That is really cool that says, let's just say it said professional. All right. Anyways, subject, elevate your brand with compelling copywriting. Grabbing attention and holding it's crucial. Does it connect? Professional copyright. This probably had a sentence that got cut off, which is weird. I help businesses like yours. This is kind of just generic. It's better than nothing. It's maybe better than starting with a blank page, but it's just like, you can't tell that I'm trying to sell consulting services or find a client or anything like that. It's better than nothing. It's better than a blank page. But if I got this email, it just doesn't do it for me. So let's go back to the slides and let's keep going here. So this is where the AIDA framework comes in. The AIDA framework is one that Jason uses in his AI consulting workshop. It's a classic framework. I'm going to take a drink of water. See, I'm so excited. I haven't done a presentation in so long, and I just love talking about this stuff. So it's one of the older frameworks. It's been around for over 100 years, and let's take a look at what it is. It's attention, interest, desire, and action. The attention, the goal of attention, you want to capture audience focus. You want to stand out with a pattern interrupt, and a pattern interrupt is that's something that's kind of an unexpected thing that it doesn't follow what the reader necessarily expects. It's either in some ways a subject line like one of Jason's emails, my $700 an hour mistake is a pattern interrupt because it doesn't seem like $700 an hour would be a mistake. Like it actually seems kind of awesome. In other examples might be if you like when couples are like, we're so close, we finish each other's, and then you either think sentences are sandwiches because those are the two like kind of ways that sentence is ended, but maybe they finish each other's, I don't know what they finish. You fill in your own blank there. And then you can do that with using headlines and what I call non-no questions. It's best to one of the best practices that I was taught by one of my mentors and have seen over the years is that you don't want to start an email or a landing page with a question that somebody could answer no to, because if they answer no, they're not going to read anymore. So the next phase is interest. This is a progression from attention to get the reader interested in what you're talking about. This is where you would elaborate on the problem or the core solution. J2BD in this case is jobs to be done, which is a kind of a theory for product design. And it's kind of outside the scope of right now, but worth looking up if you're not familiar. And it clearly connects the topics to the reader's needs. For desire, you want to create an emotional connection if you can. And talking with, a technical audience and developers, talking about emotions is kind of like not necessarily cool, I guess. But one of the things like that would count as emotional connection is like part of Jason's story of like having the wrist injury that kind of ended his career, it seemed like. So that's something that that makes you relatable, makes you or your company, that sort of thing. And highlight benefits over features always, and proactively address objections. And then finally, the action, you want to provide a clear call to action. So tell the person what you want them to do, sign up, click here, do this. Try to bring in some urgency. And it's best to do this in a way that is not, what's the word, like a false urgency sort of thing. Like, don't just say you have 30 seconds because that's all there is. And then make the next steps obvious and easy. So now that we've kind of made an outline of this, or now that we know what the AIDA framework is, let's change the prompt that we just did to name drop it and rely on the model's own understanding and knowledge of it, instead of like we're not gonna give it any more context. Let me switch my terminal to the next branch if I can find the command for terminal, because Shift Command P, everybody, and this is, I'm going to phase 1. And I got a control minus tilde, sorry. I am on a 3/4 size keyboard that has no tilde. The tilde is set as the function in escape, but it's a really weird feeling on my little keyboard. And then just checking the chat before I switch here, see if I'm missing anything. Comment from Remy. I'm curious to try slide dev with cursor. This is slide dev right now. I'm using it. Pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to switch screens back to cursor. And so we still have our naive prompting approach open. And I am not going to do that. I am going to go to 01 AIDA without explanation. So this is the prompt that I used in Cursor's ask bar. Again, not going to try to do it live because, of course, it doesn't work the way it did when I did this. But so all we've done here, the only difference is we've told it to follow the AIDA framework. We're still using Gemini Pro 325, which has been pretty awesome in my opinion. Let's take a look at these side by side. We notice here that the response has added the kind of fake headings. This, I hope, further drives the point that you should never, ever just blindly accept whatever the model gives you and ship it. That is not a good idea. So attention, are you struggling to convert website visitors into paying customers? Is your marketing message falling flat? See, when I read stuff like this, I picture like those black and white, like like the infomercials where the beginning's in black and white, and then like what's his name comes out and like slaps the duct tape on the boat or whatever. So does your current marketing copy truly connect? Like it's trying to be a little a little more clever. The imagine here, so that's good. It starts to kind of like imagining is a good thing. I don't necessarily use that word when I write, but this explains why copywriting is important, gets you interested in it. Desire, I help businesses like yours. This is what I've done. See, my problem with this says I a lot, like I do this, I do this, I do this. Like you haven't really demonstrated that you understand the problems, but better, it's still better than this, I guess. Like it's still an improvement. And then action, let's schedule a call. That's awesome. Yeah, check out my portfolio. Pretty good, pretty solid on the whole. And all we did was add this directive to follow the copywriting framework. Let's go back and look at, where is the button? There it is. Let's go back to some slides. Am I talking way too fast? Like, I guess I'm almost like, I guess I'm on time. Prompt with the AIDA explanation. So we're going to do basically the same thing, but this time we're going to use the exact explanation from the slide that I just showed. And you'll notice that this time I put the parts of my prompt in XML tags. I'm a big fan of this. I do this almost every time. I would say probably 90% of the time I will structure my prompts with XML tags like this. And to jump back to cursor, because Zoom makes it so easy to do, I will toggle the terminal and then GCO phase 2. I'll share a link to this repo if anybody's interested in that. So now that we have AIDA without explanation, let's open up 02 with brief explanation. And I did 2 versions of this, one with Claude and one with Gemini. And I did this before, right as I ran out of credits for the day for Gemini, which is a classic. Okay, so first let's look at these back and forth together with the no explanation one. I'm running cursor in a little tiny window in the top corner of my monitor with a large font, so I feel a little bit weird. That's only one of the reasons I feel weird, but so Gemini, and then now we can see here the prompt had the stuff in the explanation. Ever wonder how many people land on your site, get confused, and leave? I could say no, because I've never wondered that. A better question would be like, how many? Because how many, you can't say no to how many. Strong, clear copy isn't nice to have. It's the engine that turns visitors into leads and leads into sales. Not too bad. I like that more on the whole than what's over there. Poor copy can cost your business, fails to connect. You got to grab attention instantly. So yeah, I help businesses like yours do this. Desire, action. Yeah, like that's not too bad, actually. And then Claude version, totally different formatting, kind of underwhelming, really. I think I give the nod to Gemini. But I think that the point here is that hopefully you can see that we've applied just a little bit of context, and this is already that much better. I'm talking way more about the examples than I had intended to, by the way, but I can't help it. So in order to make things better, we're going to introduce the idea of including context with cursor. Cursor, you might probably be aware that the @ symbol allows you to bring in a lot of different information. You can bring in files, documentation from the web, even past chats. What we're going to do now for our writing is we're going to use the @web feature to search in order to expand the speaker bio that is about me that we wrote we didn't write it, I wrote it, the royal we wrote it. Let's bring in the web and build out an example of fleshing out an audience profile for the writing based on the speaker bio that's in bio.md. And so the way that we'll do this is we'll use @file to include bio.md in the prompt, which will be the exact bullet point contents from the beginning of the slideshow rather. And @web we'll search this query with the additional info from the file, and the slides will probably be shared. I'm sure the answer is yes. I hadn't thought that far ahead yet. You can also use a Git plugin to change your branches and such, but classic. All right. So under resources, we have a bio.md file, and these are the bullets from the slide where I introduced myself. And so what I did is, using that prompt that I shared, first I did this without a web search, actually. All I asked for was an audience profile. And what's interesting about this is when you don't know exactly what elements to include as additional context in a prompt, doing something like this, kind of rolling the dice and see that like the model itself looks at profile and it says, okay, so demographics, technical background, knowledge, pain points. So this is all stuff that has been surmised just from the bullet points in the bio that I provided. And we're going to use this output as it is for this demo, but hopefully you can kind of feel your wheels turning about like maybe you should dig deeper into these kind of segments. Like if these are the parts that make up an audience profile. This is Gemini with the web. And so this, again, this is different than Sonnet's not web version. And so I'm looking at chat at the same time. I should probably move this over. Guessing the characteristics of the audience based, not the speaker bio, based on the speaker bio. Yeah. So what it's done is like it's assuming that I want to write content for the person in the bio. So it's almost like kind of getting meta where I'm directing the model to write a persuasive email that would persuade Taylor Bell to hire somebody for copywriting services. So in that way, I think that it would have been with bio.md for the sake of like the real world, I would probably make that like my profile MD. And then I would say like, this is who you're taking the role on of. So there's that idea of like when you prompt that you give a context and a role and a task and constraints. But so on this audience profile from Gemini, now it's called the strategic innovator. So demographics, psychographics, forward-thinking, analytical, and results-driven. Yep. It's kind of funny to read an AI write this stuff about you based on just a few bullet points of your background. But this is, again, like these are things that like these values, this is something that could be leveraged into that kind of emotional side of connecting. And then again, this is same idea with Sonnet and comparing the three of what kind of sections show up. These are all like really good like signposts. Ian asks, have you tried using cursor rules for these things instead? Have I got a slide for you? Yes, the answer is yes. Here's a screenshot that I took of cursor doing that. This shows that it's searching the web. So it looked for how to write a speaker bio examples. So very cool thing. So that is the rest of that part of the repo. And now back to the slide. Cursor rules for AI interaction. How about that? So cursor rules, cursor has a special folder, .cursor/rules directory. And these are things that you can, this rules are read automatically when launching Cursor. It has access to them. It doesn't necessarily use them unless you tell it to. When creating rules, you can have it applied to every chat and edit that you make. You can set it to match certain globs. In this case, MD is the right thing. Agent requested tells the agent to decide when it applies or not, which we'll take a look at. And then manual you would have to write @rule name in order to apply it. So when we can use the agent to create an audience definition file. And this is where what Josh was bringing up earlier is where I kind of, in the demo, I sort of conflated the audience versus like writer thing. There is something that I want to point out, that agent is the default interaction mode now. I have it set, it used to be called YOLO mode. Now it's called auto run. And you can't see it in the screenshot, but I have RM in my command deny list because I don't want it to delete stuff. I will do that myself. And here is a prompt here's the prompt that created the audience profiles that we looked at. So we created, let me jump back no, I'll keep talking about rules for a second. Rules, in this case, using rules for markdown stuff, it will help us create reusable writing patterns. We won't have to put those XML tags of AIDA info every time we write. It helps be consistent with voice, tone, style, structure, and they're easy to share and reuse because you can just check them into your repo. You can see here where I've prompted the agent to create the rules based on the content of the MD files. And that brings in phase 3, which we'll switch to look at in a second. And here we're creating rules using the agent that we can then bring in and call up. So now, once the rules are in place, we have an AIDA rule in place, where we can use that same AIDA name drop prompt that we used earlier. And you can see here that Cursor has brought in the rules to make it happen. Let's switch back. I think I resized the window. Does it still look all right? I can put it back where it was. GCO, phase 3, rules creation. Okay, so close some of this. Looks fine. Cool. So inside of .cursor, I have created separate rule files for the audience profile. And so this is one of the markdown files that I showed earlier. If it looks fine at both, I'll make it a little bit bigger. So this is the demographic, psychographic stuff. So this is audience profile.mdc. This one's auto attached. So in this particular project, every prompt that is made will include the audience profile. Then I just set up separate rules, like with help from the agent, as we saw in the screenshot earlier, set up separate rules for action, attention, desire, and interest. So what we did here is this goes further than the XML that we provided. So the agent used this, searched the web, found additional like action stuff. Here it gave examples of technical CTAs and alternatives. Again, this is all totally machine written. You would, in the real world, write this stuff yourself, but it kind of demonstrates like this is now like probably a page and a half about just the action part. So that's pretty cool. Then with the rules, we can see that let's compare the Sonnet one to the brief explanations. Yeah, so a sample file with the rules. Yeah, I'll share a link to the GitHub repo afterwards. And yeah, it will have all these files in it. You will have to know how to change branches, but you can ask the chat that, huh? Okay, so remember how short this AIDA with a brief explanation, so the prompt when we had the XML versus with the rules, and this is the same model. It's still a pretty short email, but it feels a little bit better. Again, I can't say it enough. Don't ever send something without editing it fully. Please don't. That's 3.5 versus 3.7. So 3.7 here on the left, almost the same. Like it still brings in that, oh, this time it's 78% instead of 73. Don't know where these stats come from, but you can see that it kind of gives an example of like what I've done as a copywriter, which again, I haven't done, but not to belabor the point. I'll switch back to the slides now. Is this making sense for people? Like I feel like I'm talking really fast, but also, and maybe too much, but not enough. But really, the practical workflow that we've done here, and the one that I follow generally, is research phase. So the audience, the scope, the goals. What are you trying to do with the piece of content that you're creating? The rule creation, again, style, tone, and structure. Advice on email length, short, yes. So after you create the rules, and the rules should hold for most of your projects, generate content iteratively. What we didn't do in the demo, and looking at the clock, I don't know if there will be time. I almost always start with an outline. I did not start with an outline in the demo, but what I would do is I would say, since we have rules for action, interest, desire, attention is first rather, I would say, based on these rules, here's my goal, this is my audience, outline something with each letter of the way, and then refine and rewrite. You got to edit the generated content. It needs to feel like you wrote it. It needs to, and by you, I mean you, a human being. There's so many things where even in like papers on archive and stuff, it's like, why are you using all these like 30-letter words? It's not necessary. And there's so much more to talk about. Email me to chat whenever, Taylor@copywriting.dev. But some of these might have come up in the chat. I feel like I saw some, but questions about prompt management, so templates, content development, repo structures, editing practices to find your voice, tone, and style, workflow automation and tooling. I've scripted most of this stuff out, lots of research. I call it agent-ish because I very much am a fan of human in the loop. I don't know if I mentioned that enough. So that's the presentation. I guess we'll do some Q&A, maybe some more live demo. I didn't realize how long I talked for already. Should I scroll back through?
I think we can just jump into some of the questions first and then see if anyone is
Okay.
interested in.
Let me stop sharing the screen. I'll share answers and stuff.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I mean, I have an opinion on this, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. But what are the main advantages of using Cursor over like a custom GPT or Claude project?
So I spent a lot of time in VS Code before Cursor even came out. There's just so many more. Having a development background in particular, I'm kind of predisposed to using a development tool with things like even just using Vim mode. Like I mash escape a lot, and so there's things that like just don't translate for me in a browser. But that's kind of what the beauty about this workflow, this general workflow of iteratively changing the prompt structure, that will work in ChatGPT UI. It will work on writer.com or whatever it is. Like it will work anywhere. And so really like even though this demo was about Cursor, it also is more actually about like the workflow and the strategy behind prompting towards copywriting rather than like, you can dig a hole with a screwdriver. It probably won't work that well. My mom used to build furniture when I was a kid with a meat tenderizer and a butter knife, and we eventually got actual tools. But really, it's like that's what that jobs to be done theory is like what's the thing you actually want to do. Hopefully that answers that a bit.
Yeah, I think this is a question. I mean, I have some examples of my own, but what would be some examples for you on a non-no question?
A non-no question. When was the last time is a good one. There used to be one that's taken out of context. It wouldn't sound good. It's like, do you still? Like, do you still? You could say no to. I'm changing. I'm not going to say the thing out loud that I thought I was going to say out loud. When was the last time? How often? Where do you? How do you? Anything that like, are you having trouble converting leads? Nope. Next email. Like anything that like you can't nope out of immediately. That's like a question like that. But you said you have some. Like, what are some of yours?
Yeah, I mean, the one I have, especially because oftentimes my issue is once I get the first call, they sort of ignore future calls. And so if I know what their concerns are, the question I like to ask is, are you still committed to result? People, for example, if people want to like learn more about consulting and then they stop replying to emails, like, hey, are you still
You
committed
could say
to
you
like
could
becoming
say no.
independent?
You
I
could
can
say
say
no
no,
to
and I'm
that
just
though.
yeah.
So the way that I might reframe that is where have your priorities shifted to? Or like it looks like your priorities have shifted. Like instead of asking them, just say it seems that you're not committed to this anymore. Instead of are you still committed? Well yeah, but I got busy. But like it seems you don't care. Like something like that well, it's not even a question anymore. So I guess it doesn't fully fit the brief, but
That makes sense. I definitely want to. I'd love to have like a swipe file for some of these non-no questions. Maybe we'll make
that
afterwards.
is a very good idea. Swipe file for the folks at home. That is when you find pieces of content or advertisements or emails or anything that like resonated with you. I like to think of it as like this thing got me to buy something. So I want to take this and understand the structure of what it was. And so that's where kind of in the demo of where it's like here's the AIDA email where Gemini put like attention, interest. Do that on your own with stuff that you read. Like, what is it that made you resonate with a particular piece of content? And then you kind of make your own template from there almost. Like, then yeah, it's a swipe because you swiped it from somebody else, and you swipe structure, not wording, as much as possible.
Sweet. This is a question. I mean, I have an opinion on this as well, but one of the questions is for cold outbound, is it a good idea to include a calendar link for convenience or wait for them to reply before scheduling?
Why don't you answer this one? I think this one's more directly applicable for
Yeah.
your.
I mean, to me, it's like I just want to reduce as much friction as possible. And it really depends on how much inbound I'm getting, right? So if I have no inbound, I'm probably going to be reaching out to people, including the Calendly link. If I have a lot more inbound, maybe I am just reaching out to people who are very interested, in which case, if they're all just really important people, I'll still include a Calendly link. If I'm spamming 10,000 emails, that might not be something I would do as much. I mostly think about it as just what are the friction points I'm trying to introduce to get the customers I want.
Yeah, I think I'm in line with that. I think that knowing the scope of how many people are you trying to send a calendar link to? So yeah, like most questions in development, the answer is it depends. But yeah, I think you had it right on for this particular scenario.
Mhm. Another question I think that I'm curious as well to hear from you is if you could change a couple of things about Cursor in terms of copywriting, what would you change?
Oh, see, that's interesting. I think that one of the things that I would change about Cursor in general, and this like it extends to writing also, is I don't know if y'all follow the Reddit, but like there's a lot of people who almost take personal offense to changes in the UI and the behavior of the agent.
Yeah.
I've had things where it will change stuff in files that has nothing to do with what I was just doing, or it will undo stuff that I put back, or I'll reject certain things and not other things. So I think that some sort of so it has like the restore checkpoints feature, but then I want something that's between the timeline of what you changed and that local history and Git and restore to a checkpoint. Like sometimes I feel like the undo isn't as undoey as it should be.
Mhm.
Like I kind of want to go back to the red green a little bit easier sometimes, but still have the ability to edit a green thing would be nice. But yeah, so I guess that would be it. I guess just like the file changing stuff.
Have you tried using things like Windsurf?
I have not tried windsurf yet. I'm interested in kind of applying this same process. I actually thought about doing some sort of like a shootout where I do the same thing across like Klein, windsurf, Rue code or whatever it's called. It's just Rue maybe. But yeah, there's I haven't yet. The short answer is no. That was a yes or no question, and I could have
Yeah,
just
I
said
mean,
nope.
I've been using Claude Code, and it's actually been really, really good.
How much are you spending on it?
I spend like $200 a week.
Yeah, so I don't. As I'm doing my
I mean,
20
because
my
I
20 a
have
month.
like hours and hours of seminars and lectures I got to go through to sort of like organize
Yeah.
material. So it's been like
Yeah.
it is pretty incredible.
And really like it's all like you stuff. So like I haven't delved into the world of Claude code yet. I would never write that for the record. But like it's the fact that it's $200. Like it's really easy to be like $200, and it's like I spent more than that on beer last month. So like maybe not actually. No, not last month. But I have before. The point is, expense is like what's your time worth, basically.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Maybe you can end it with this question here: is do you have any plugins you use to make your experience with slide dev even better? With just slide dev and cursor.
Yeah. So what's funny is this is the first time I've really used it, and I didn't install any plugins for it. I am using the Never Night theme, something. But it's been really fun to write slides in Markdown because as I'm sure everybody knows by now, like I spend a lot of time writing Markdown. I think that my tip for the slides is slide dev lets you have a slides.markdown file.md where you import slides instead of writing it all in one giant file. So I would say write your slides separately. But yeah, I didn't really do too much generation on the slides. I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but I used the cursor docs feature to help me like kind of rearrange stuff. I'd never written Vue before, and some of the you don't really have to write that much Vue, but there's some. I come from React land. It's just like some of the stuff's a little different, but yeah, that's
Awesome. I think with 5 minutes left, we can probably wrap this up just because I also have to prepare for another meeting right after this. But do you want to just share maybe your contact information one more time, and then we can make sure that we include everything on the follow-up email?
yeah, you can find me at copywriting.dev. It's just a simple landing page right now. I really want to talk about this stuff more. This is the first time I've really been able to talk out loud about it. I come from like from being behind the scenes. Copywriting.dev, Taylor at copywriting.dev is my email for that. I'm on Twitter at Taylor Bell. I don't tweet very much and I delete a lot of tweets 5 minutes after writing them. But yeah, I think that's probably the easiest spot. Write me an email about whatever. Like this is like obviously I like talking about this stuff. I'm clearly very excitable. I need to work on my SEO. Yes, I do. And that landing page is a ConvertKit landing page that I just put up like 3 weeks ago. But yes, I will work on the SEO and I got lots of stuff to write about.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks everybody. See you around.
Take care.